6:59.
Good evening and welcome to our City Council meeting this November the 18th of 2024. I'm going to call our meeting to order. We're going to start out with an invocation from Pastor Jesse Fields from the Restoration and Deliverance Ministries here in Mount Holly, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Boy Scout Troop 59. If you would, please stand with me.
Let us pray. Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we come before you, God, as humble as we know how, God. Thanking you for your many blessings on today, God. We invoke your presence upon us today, God, as we go forth. God, in this meeting in the city of today, God, we pray, God, that your divine presence be here with us, God. We pray for the city council meeting members, God. We pray for our mayor. We pray for those that are in authority, God, that they will make decisions that will benefit your people, that will bless your people as we go forth, God. We pray, God, for our chief police department and all of the other officials in this city, God, as we continue to go forth, God, giving your name glory, giving your name praise because of your goodness and because of your greatness, God. Father, your words say, out of all our getting, get an understanding, Father. We're praying today, God, that your name will be glorified, that your name will be magnified. And we won't take no credit, but we will say, you've done it all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors. Color guard, advance. Color guard, post the colors. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. Salute. Pledge.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, fine folks in Mount Holly, good evening. Thank you for having us, Mr. Mayor. I'd be remiss tonight to not say thank you to our veterans and everybody who's served in our armed forces since we celebrated that last week and we didn't have a regular meeting last week. And this time of Thanksgiving coming up, I'd like to remind everybody, please stretch a hand out to those that are locked in, that are shut in. There's a lot of people in this community that don't have the resources to get out and about. And I'd like to say, extend that hand out and be thankful to them and be thankful for what you've got, and extend a hand out to the people of Mount Holly and reach out to those that are shut in during this time of Thanksgiving. Thank you.
You may be seated. Thank you, Troop 59, for always being here. We appreciate your presence. And thank you, Mr. Fields, for your invocation. Thank you so much. We need to now set the agenda. I have one change on the agenda. We want to move number 6 off the consent agenda to new business, and we want to put that at number 1, and we'll put the manager's report at number 2. Any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Meadows and Mr. Craig, all in favor? That passes. We have now 8 items on the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve that. Mr. Craig and Mr. Reeves, all in favor? Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we'll do presentations with Gaston County Presents Gaston 250. Deputy Director of Communications, Dandria Bradley. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor Moore and City Council members. Thank you so much for having me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to present to you all and to your residents and citizens this evening. I'm going to pull up the presentation. And I promise I won't be before you long. So Gaston County is going to celebrate America 250. And what is America 250? Well, on July 4th, 2026, America turns 250 years old. So the America 250 initiative was launched at the federal level and then pushed down to the states. So the state of North Carolina also has its own America 250 initiatives. From there, we were able to receive funding in the amount of $10,000 in the first round of grants from the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to establish our own initiatives to celebrate America 250. So who's doing the work? Well, we did set up a Gaston County 250 committee, and we were recognized at the Board of Commissioners meeting earlier this year. So there are about 40 plus members on the committee with representatives from multiple historical groups, such as here in Mount Holly, as well as Belmont, Gastonia, and some others. And most of the municipalities are represented as well. We are hoping to add a few more because we do need some representatives from Randlow and High Shoals, as well as McAdenville. Jane Kaler, she is the local history and genealogy supervisor at the Gaston County Public Library. She is the chairperson for our committee, and we have 6 subcommittees. I myself serve on the marketing subcommittee as the Deputy Communications Director. We also have several county departments that are lending their support. The Communications Office, the Museum of Art and History, the Library, the Register of Deeds, just to name a few. So we recently created a logo. We wanted it to be representative of Gaston County, but also of America. So we took the county's existing logo and tweaked it a little bit with our red, white, and blue. So this is the logo that we decided on, and it was approved by the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources in September. You'll see this logo around. We've also created a website where folks can go to look at information. It's still being constructed, it's still under construction, but this is what it will look like. So we have different items that our visitors can see, programs, who the partners are. So I'm going to click on the partners. So it lists our state organizations. So you'll see America 250 North Carolina there, as well as the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, the county departments that we're partnering with, the different municipalities, the colleges, and so on. Also on the America 250 Gaston website, we plan to have a video series. So as part of the initiative, we're going to be creating videos to share not only American history, but Gaston County history as well, because we do want to tell our own story and how it applies to America's overall story. So we plan to look at significant historical events here in Gaston County. We also plan to have podcasts, inviting different folks from the historical societies, people who have grown up here. Rumor has it that there's a family in Gaston County that still has their original deed signed by King George, so be on the lookout for that. All right, let me go back to the PowerPoint. So as far as the $10,000 grant funds that we receive from the state, we plan to use it to produce promotional materials, educational materials, such as bookmarks. We've already printed 5,000 to start. You should have those bookmarks there. We also plan to produce some brochures just to give some background information about the Gaston County Celebrates America 250 initiative. We're also going to have some branded items, so stickers, magnets, and buttons or pins, and I have those for you as well. So what can you expect to see? I did mention the videos highlighting key local historical events, the bookmarks and brochures. You'll also see different initiatives going on for the next year and a half leading up to July 4th, 2026. So some of these initiatives or programs or events are going to be initiated by the committee itself, but we also plan to have a presence at different community events. So coming up, we're going to be, you'll see us at a lot of the Christmas events coming up. So what are we planning to do next? Well, right now we're presenting Gaston 250 to all the governing boards. We've already presented to the Board of Commissioners, Cramerton City Council, others are scheduled, and I am here tonight to present. We also plan to work with the local nonprofits in the area to apply for the next round of grant funding because they are eligible to apply for up to $30,000. So slightly more than what we were able to apply for, which was $10,000. And then the last thing we want to do is spread the word because we want as many people to know about the Gaston County 250 initiative and America's birthday, and we want to celebrate as a community. So at this time, I am happy to answer any questions.
Council, have any questions for Ms. Bradley?
Thank you.
All right, thank you for being here. We
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much.
Okay, next on our agenda is Veterans Park proposal from North State Development, Rachel Krenz and Shane Siegel.
Hey there, how you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Let me figure out how to pull this all up. Does anybody know how to make this full presentation?
Yeah, I think you just scroll down. We'll close that sidebar.
Okay, does that work?
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry to make you get up. Hey guys, thank you so much for having us. I'm Rachel Krenz, this is Shane Siegel. We're here on behalf of North State Development to talk about the Veterans Park expansion project that I know you guys have been working on for quite some time. We are first just so excited that you have selected us to work on this project, and it's only been about 2 weeks, which is not much time to get a lot done, but we have dug in and kind of hit the ground running to start researching and learning more and start brainstorming and spending time envisioning what this could be. From what I understand, this presentation is just to give you a sense of where our heads are at, give you a perspective of the direction we're going, but it's a little unusual to present that at this time, this early. Normally what I would like to do is to meet with you individually and hear what you want from it. And so this is a very preliminary thought process of where we're at. And I'm hoping that it's the start of a conversation and lots of conversations, I should say, with you individually and also as a group. We've met a couple times with the staff who's been wonderful, and we still have lots more to dig into. You good? You want me? Okay, I'll just keep going then. So the first thing we did was we looked at the strategic vision plan update that you all have. I love it when municipalities will put in place what a vision is. It makes our jobs as developers so much easier to actually implement what you want. So we looked at that and saw the core values. All 6 of those are things that we think this project's going to be able to tap into. So that's great when you're already aligned with the vision plan. For example, preserve and enhance small town character. The small town character survives by small businesses. So if we can help support small businesses to bring more financial support to them, that's a big piece of it, like along Main Street. But also when we're designing, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned, by the way, we have Taylor Critchett with Seaman Whiteside, our land planner here, and Wyatt Street with North State Development. So folks like Taylor Critchett and our architects, when we're designing, thinking about what does the pedestrian realm look like and really honing in on that small town vibe it happens at the pedestrian realm. So we'll spend a lot of time on that during the design process. Number 2 and number 3, connecting to the downtown core and connections throughout the city. This is the one I'm most excited about, that this site is sitting there as a whole between so many of the city's assets. So I think there's a lot of connections that we can make. The vibrancy with art and placemaking, if you've seen any of my projects, you know that I love art and I love placemaking. My background is historic preservation, and I have a master's in city planning, but I've been a developer for 15 years, and so every development project I work in has some element of art in it. I can't not bring that in. I love that. Enhancing gateways, first impressions, and advancing the legacy of the leadership. I mean, this project is going to change the downtown, and we want to make sure that it's one that fits with the vision of the leadership and what you intended for it originally. It will be an impression of the downtown of Mount Holly, and so I think that's an important piece that we have to figure out what is that. It has the potential to really enhance it, and what leadership goals do you have for it are going to be important on that. So I think we can hit all the core values. We also, just to show you, this was a document of the vision plan update. I highlighted all the goals, that you all had, and this is just my first stab at, like, all of these we can work on out the gate. I can already find ways to connect to them. So I think we can really start from there. When you look at a project, there's some developers out there that will look at just the parcels, like, what can I develop on the parcels? This is not one of those projects. We are not one of those developers. This project needs to look with blurred lines. We don't want to look at it as like there's a property boundary. This has the potential to impact all of Mount Holly, but adjacent properties are going to be, really impacted by it. So we want to make sure we're being sensitive to it and that we're taking advantage of an opportunity and not a missed opportunity. This is a pretty impactful site for you guys, and so if you miss that opportunity, that would just be a shame. So we're starting looking at it from a larger perspective. We have done some site visits by car, by walking. We've gone into businesses and restaurants just to get to know a little bit more about what the opportunities are. I'm not going to read through all these because I think you already have the presentation, but we've already started to make a lot of notes about what the opportunities were. I will spend a little bit time on the Main Street opportunity slide for a minute, because I think this is one of the first things when I was walking the site was there's this huge opportunity. I grew up in New Orleans, where there are all of these small town, old world kind of feelings, I guess is a way to put it, where you've got existing businesses, and how does the landscape and the built environment around those enhance it? And walking up on the back of retail is not what most people think is like the most exciting thing, but for me, I started salivating at the opportunity just on the back side of this property, which is what will connect to the existing parcels that we're talking about right now. There's a lot of users there. What do their interests have? The church, for example, is that enough parking? What else do they need? Is there a way to do a shared parking model that helps them have more parking? Do they need a playground? Are the driveways being used that are there today? In Greenville, South Carolina, their Main Street is celebrated as something really exciting for region. Tourism is drawn there because of their Main Street, and there's one code in their planning that I absolutely love is they don't allow any curb cuts on their Main Street, and they are steadfast about that. And it's that little planning thing that happens that makes a pedestrian feel really great when walking down a block. And so number 2, there's an alley there. Is it actually being used for vehicles? Does it need to be? Could we make that more active of a use? Could you put some of these precedent imageries, could you activate these alleys so that when you're parking behind, it's exciting the whole way through? So this project may develop the land south of this or plan south of this, but it's going to have an impact in how do we blur the lines and connect their retail to this existing site. There was a plan in the RFQ that you guys put together, and I'll first acknowledge that that plan I know is done under certain circumstances to meet a lot of different goals, and you can't possibly meet every goal. So when I share some criticisms of it, I just want to give my friends at McAdams a pass that, of course, they couldn't do financial feasibility and things like that when doing the plan. But when we looked at it, there were some things that we loved, all the things that you guys loved about it. But some of the cons to it are opportunities that we've asked Seaman Whiteside Taylor and his team to look into. We don't think that it's engaging the retail parcels very well. there's an inefficient use of the infrastructure. So for example, you have vehicles coming this way, and this way. Is there a way to kind of to work the infrastructure of where cars go so that it's a little bit more efficient use of space? If you look at this area right here in real life and imagine I'm a pedestrian walking from the Greenway down to the church, for example, I'm walking through a sea of parking. Like, if I want to go to the Veterans Park expansion, the amphitheater, and I want to go have dinner beforehand, like, do I really want to walk through parking with no, like, true pedestrian safe zones? So there's certain things about it that I think we can just make some alterations on. The other piece is just it's really bifurcated here. And I want to pull the energy of all the assets that you have together and pull them and not make them so bifurcated. And of course, in a first concept plan, it'll always feel that way. You're just trying to get something on paper, but we need to take it to the next level to make it a little bit more active, a little bit more connected. Think about the actual pedestrian experience first. So we've done a ton of concept studies, just sketches to get a sense of, where would you go? And so this is just kind of a block and tackling plan of like, where would the different uses go? Where are the connective points? This is just one concept study. There's things about this one that we don't love. Like, I don't love that there's a connection mid-block. I think for a safety perspective, you need to have those on the corners. So we will continue to refine this concept plan with, the variety of stakeholders that want to play a role in this, but this is the one that we loved the most because what it does is it pulls the connection of the existing Veterans Park, the Greenway through the new expansion. It connects back to the municipal building and it connects the downtown retail and brings it even more. So this red represents retail. So you continue the retail vibe along East Central and then just imagine having an amphitheater in a park and there's a restaurant sitting on the corner there with outdoor dining and you can sit and have dinner and hear the music in the amphitheater. Like, that activity is what people are going to want, to create that destination. Like, why would I, as a mother, want to bring my kids here? Why would I want to go on a date here? What is the thing that's going to pull me here? And the idea of having dinner and listening to music and being able to walk between and having easy parking, like, those are the things that we want to kind of push the envelope for, to think about what is the experience of the users. So we are doing some market research right now to understand, like, who is the end user. We can come up with what we think it is, but we want to do a little bit more data. We take data, our own gut, all the interviews. We'll talk to all the different stakeholders, including the business owners, the landowners, all of you all, and get a sense of, like, who really is the opportunity here for? Why are we building this? Who's going to be the person that's going to live here, shop here, and start designing from their experience? You'll notice there's retail and residential. That's the primary uses that we envision here, plus the park. We want to increase density to make people, actually living here, eyes on the street. If you're a planner nerd like me and you like Jane Jacobs, the concept of eyes on the street, of the more people that you can see on the street, the safer that you feel. And so putting people in this area is really crucial to helping the businesses create that safety. We need to study the parking demand. Parking is the first thing in development when you start. It costs a lot. You got to make sure you have enough parking, otherwise people won't live there. So we'll start designing from what does the parking demand need to be. And mostly just creating energy and connecting all the existing energy. So you take all these pieces and you just amplify them up to make it something that everybody's buzzing about. In the RFQ, we listed a bunch of city benefits that we, right off the gate, can see would happen with this project. I think there's a lot more to be had, but that gave you, you've already seen that in the RFQ plus on this slide that you've looked at before, but there are a lot of opportunities here. I am a big believer in bridging the gap between municipalities, community members, and development to understand that there are benefits for all in every development project, and it's how do you maximize those and work together to maximize them. And I think this is a dream project for maximizing all stakeholder benefits. So I'm really excited. By the way, this piece of art in the middle here is a mosaic in one of the projects I developed. It is we did an RFP for a local artist. Every person that worked on the project, we got a picture of them. The artist drew them, then created tiles and installed them. And so it's meant to represent that people build places. And so every day that people walk by this site, they see all the faces of people that build this place. So my 6-year-old daughter I was pregnant with She's on there, that I had just given birth to her, and so she's on there and she can walk by and be like, my mom made this project happen. And so things like that are what I think we can do to make it personal, interactive, exciting, and active. So we're very excited, but we're also developers and have to mitigate risks. That's a big part of our job. And so we started listing out the current challenges, and there'll be more to come. I've never done a project that hasn't had thousands of challenges and risks as part of it. But the first one is there's not a lot of due diligence information, so we need to do all of that. We need to do an environmental study. We need to do a stream analysis. If the stream we think is not going to be an issue, but if for some reason it becomes an issue and there's less developable area, that would impact this project. So we need to do things like that. The survey that we have has no topography on it, so we need to get that. Lots of typical stuff that we need to do, but that has a potential risk. The survey shows a 40-foot right-of-way from the railroad, 40 feet into the property, so from back of curb. So that takes out a lot of developable area. Is that a real thing? Is that something we can work through? Usually I stay away from railroad negotiations, as most of you probably do. So is that something we need to design around? So we need to figure that out. There's a lot of adjacencies. What makes this project very cool is that there's a lot of different uses surrounding this site, but that's also a constraint. So you want to be sensitive to the single families across the street. How do you make sure they're protected? You want to support the retail businesses, not hurt them. There's just a lot of the railroad. And so we have to figure out how do those constraints impact us. We've dug into all of your policies and plans, and there's some challenges to developing this and some that are conflicting. For example, there's different language about height, or there's something about parking lots and how you do the trees, and you wouldn't be able to get the parking count if you really followed it to the T. And there's little things that we can work through with Greg to figure out, but we do need to solve some of the things that prevent you and make sure we're protected under every policy, make sure they say the same thing. So we'll do some cleaning up of that. There's also going to be a lot of high costs just in general because construction costs are high, but on this site, we're a little worried about the grading issues, and then the stream. Crossing a stream, as you all know, can be expensive, so that's a piece of it, and if we have to do any cleanup or anything related to that. There's significant public infrastructure. Today, any development deal is very difficult to pencil, but if you add in public infrastructure, that makes it even harder. So, for example, the public streets, any improvements we want to do on roads for traffic mitigation. The park plan is a heavy one to have an amphitheater, the splash pad, a bridge over. There's just a lot of public infrastructure that we'd have to figure out how we actually can pay for that to make it happen. And then today, excuse me, the current economic conditions have made capitalizing projects difficult. We're lucky North State has such great relationships, but getting a loan has been hard for the past year for any company. And while North State has been able to do it, the terms of that can be a little bit harder. And so that puts even more financial pressures. If banks they're tightening up, hopefully they loosen up a little bit by the time we actually close on capital here, but that does put an extra challenge on it. And then what we may dream up in all these vision plans, we might have some product we really, really want to do, like we want every single building to be brick and the most expensive brick possible. We may all agree that we want that. But then when it comes down to it, we can only get so much revenue on this project to be able to pay for something like that. So the balance of the revenue and the costs are going to be something we're going to have to juggle. And that's what we do every day. But we're going to have to figure out how to balance all of those things and what do we really want and what can we achieve. The most concerning for us is the economics. So in the very beginning, we always do a back of envelope underwriting, like before we acquire a site or even talk to a seller about a site. Like, does this make any sense to pursue? If it doesn't pencil in the very beginning, we're like, okay, we'll walk away, or we don't find a way to make it work. And so we did that for the RFQ plan, and I just wanted to walk you through kind of how that works. You have it in your plan, so you may have already looked at this. But the way that the first back of envelope look, there's a lot of return metrics, but the first one is a return on cost. Return on cost is the net operating income, which is revenue minus the operating expenses divided by budget. So that's how you operate it versus how you build it. So the operating budget divided by the development budget. So the capital that we have typically worked with, and both in historical jobs and the current investors with North State, require a 7% return on cost. So we have to make this project be a 7% return on cost in order to pursue it. So we just took the RFQ plan and did a back of envelope underwriting. This is not our plan, this is not what we want to do, but we wanted to see like what's in the RFQ, does it make any sense? And so we took historical projects, information from the city, and we put together these numbers, and the development budget would be around $50.6 million to build up the RFQ plan. And of course, all of this could change. You know, a lot of things will happen between now and then, and we're making a lot of assumptions on, is it, you know, is the sidewalk concrete, or is it brick? Is it, you know, you make a ton of assumptions, but it's around $50 million. And then the operating budget is $2.5 million, the operating income. So the residential revenue that we have in there, just taking a quick look at what other apartment communities rent for, because a portion of this would be for rent, at least a portion of it. And the rents range from $1,100 to $2,050 when we just did a quick cursory look. We're doing a deep dive market study right now, but that takes a little longer to kind of put together. So the quick look is that's the range of rents. We assumed $2,100 for the rent on average. That would, I think that's justifiable because we'll be the newest product, we'll be at downtown, so we'd be the highest rent. Could you get more? Maybe. Do we want it to be more? Do we want it to have, you know, a variety of unit mix? So you have some cheap units, some expensive units. We don't know yet. There's a lot of work to be done on that, but that's the assumption we made. And we use typical project costs to assess that. So the RFQ, given all those assumptions, is at a return on cost of 4.88. So that tells us this doesn't make sense. But we believe in this site, like we truly believe in it, and we think there's some shortcomings in the plan that we can make that gap a little bit less. You know, if you are trying to get to a 7% on that RFQ plan, you need to reduce the cost by $15 million or increase the NOI by $1 million. So, you know, add $600 to every person's monthly rent, for example, would be a way to translate that, or a combination of both of those. So it's sort of a high-level way to look at, is this project financially feasible? This was 147 units, 6,000-ish retail. It had the park in there, the amphitheater, splash pad. You can make some changes to make this better. So for example, if we went from 147 units to 250 units, that delta of $15 million of cost that needs to come down would be, I think when we did it, it was like 14 million or 13 something million. So you've taken $2 million off just by increasing the density, but there's still going to be an economic issue here and a gap. And so we wanted to just be transparent when we met with the city staff to say this deal does not make any sense as it's currently thought through. The RFQ said that there was a creative ideas on financing that we can talk through, and so we are at the table because we want to figure that out with you guys. This project has so much opportunity, and with creative financing, I think it can work. There's a way to make this happen, but how is what we all kind of need to roll up our sleeves and figure out. And then, let's see, that is not working, hold on. So that back of envelope that we do is like the first piece of it. And then this is the whole development process for us. This is the framework with which we operate in. This was in the RFQ plan as well. It is a long process to develop a site. A typical multifamily project will take about a year to design, to do the due diligence, design, permit, start construction. Could take 2 years to build. So it could take 3 years before, at the earliest, you'd actually have someone living in the property. The faster that you get to construction start, the better the numbers are, the better the deal is. Like we are incentivized to make the project happen as fast as we can. It's a lot of resources, our time, all the time of our team. There's a bunch of other team members behind us that aren't at the meeting. So there's a lot of work that we are willing to do and want to do and excited about. We need, from the city, we've let the staff know, we need a couple things for us to move forward on it. One is that we want a memorandum of understanding to understand, like, what are we trying to do here? Let's make sure we're all on the same page of how are we going to get to a land closing and a construction start? Like, what are the steps that we're all trying to achieve. As part of that, we need to figure out the legal strategy. So how are these properties being transacted? We are not legal people, so we'll have to have some support on that. But hearing from the city of this is the legal way that we'll make this agreement happen. Here's the financing plan that the North Carolina statutes would support for filling in that economic gap from a public perspective. And then what's the schedule of that? You know, when is the land going to be acquired? How do we get the capital? If it, for example, if it's if one of the tools that we use is a tax increment grant, a TIG, that means that we pay for everything, create the taxes. So upfront, we'll pay for something, and in 5 years, we get reimbursed back from it. And so that's a very different underwriting that we'll do if that's the tool. And the timing of when that money comes back to us has a big impact on the project. So we need to understand what is the tool for legally doing the transaction, what is the financing tool, and how's the schedule of that all play out. Hopefully, I'm not boring you guys.
Not at all.
Okay, good. So what we've asked the staff and what we've asked of you is for you all to join in and be super excited about all our ideas, hopefully, and then to share and add your ideas and start the conversation of how do we make this project happen. But before we can put up a significant amount of dollars and time, like, you know, a project of this size, a pre-development budget could be like $1 million for us, a couple $100,000 the first couple of months, like that's a lot of money. And so we need to know this project's real for us. So we're asking the staff and you all to help us get that MOU together and figure out what the plan is. And once we have that, we can do all the due diligence work, and then we'll work through the development agreement process. And once that's done, then it's a full execution of, like, you know, we might have a concept plan of what the master plan looks like, but once the development agreement's done, it's a done deal. We're designing, you know, I'm picking out tile for the, you know, for the lobby of the leasing office. You know, it will be a kind of a go after the development agreement. The 8 steps that are listed on this slide are just, you know, what's going to happen right away. Once it all happens, once you get the MOU, you know, we're going to meet with the stakeholders, anyone that wants to meet with us, if anyone's in this room who wants to meet, anyone else who's watching, listening, anyone you talk to, like, the more information we get in the beginning, the better the project will be. We want this to be a success, so we need all the input. We'll do all the due diligence to figure out what our constraints are, how we have to design around it. We'll finish doing market research. We'll continue doing market research for the life of the project. Do a parking study to understand if there's a larger need for the area or just for our project. We'll continue our underwriting to create a pro forma. We'll do the master planning, and all of that will kind of start to shape what it is we're going to build and how we're going to make this happen. And then there's a whole lot more steps that kind of follow after that. Everything I just said was a lot, and I could go on for like a full day to talk through every slide in more detail, but if you remember anything, I wanted to put the key takeaway on here is that we want to partner in this. We're super excited. This is a huge opportunity for the city, and it's the type of project that we love to do. To develop is it's an honor for us, and a project like this that can have an impact is way more enjoyable for us. So we're in, and we hope you're in, and that you'll kind of figure it out with us and figure out how to move forward. Put both Shane and I's emails up there, so if you want to follow up with any questions, if you guys are excited to move forward, then we'll reach out to you to start scheduling meetings and start talking about it all, but you're welcome to email us at any point. We can set up call times, and I could give you our cell phones too. We're happy to open kind of door to talk. So I'll stop there and let you ask any questions. I can go back on any slides if you want.
All right, thank you. Council, have any questions? I know this is preliminary talks, but we can probably answer a couple questions if any council member has anything. Mr. Meadows?
Just a couple of points on the presentation. That was a plan, not the plan. That was just something to start conversation. So we recognize and have talked about many times as a group that the creativity of the private sector is much greater than that of the public sector. And we've done our best to create an invitation that allows folks to come in and do what they do and for us to be a part of, but as much as we can stay out of the way. So just wanted to say that first. The second piece is we have anticipated a conditional rezoning on this site, but we didn't know what to take it to or what to address. And height is one of those things that we have talked about. Clearly, I actually have an AICP as well and have planning background. So I think the existing character is important to preserve, but I think that we have enough distance from the single family and the two-story lines to where if you went a little higher and you design that properly, and especially with 27, that there's some ways to do that where you honor what is existing and not impact that in a negative way.
Yeah.
So that was a couple things that we have. And then we have talked about synthetic TIF. We haven't necessarily done that. There's some other partners that we've got to talk to. We've had presentations here. There's the county. There's some other folks that we need to talk to about kind of how that works. We've talked about doing some other creative financing ideas. We have a new economic development director, and I think he's scheduled to present soon to us some ideas that we haven't even necessarily heard about yet. So I'm excited about where we are in the process, that we have somebody who's interested in carrying this out. I do recognize that the economic challenges in today's world are real, and we're going to have to be creative to overcome those, but I believe that this can be a real change for the downtown that will underpin a lot of the efforts that came along 20 years before I got here.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you
All right, thank you, guys. Oh,
Yeah, sure.
thank you for being here. Okay, next on our agenda is public hearing. Public hearing number 1 to amend section 15.5 penalties for violation of the zoning ordinance to reference section 10.99 in the recently updated City Code of Laws, which would remove outdated references the City Code of Laws and found in the zoning ordinance to ensure that zoning violation letters are defensible. Case number TA 24-6. Mr. Blackwell.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens of Mount Holly. This is a very simple procedural change. It's a request for a text amendment update to the zoning ordinance to reflect the new section of the City Code of Laws, reference that section of the City Code of Laws for zoning fines. Nothing will change in our zoning fines. They are currently at $50 per zoning violation per day. And that section of the City Code of Laws references section 14-4 of the North Carolina General Statutes. So staff does recommend a approval of this text amendment, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Blackwell? All right, we'll need to go into our public hearing. I need a motion to go into a public hearing. Mr. Craig, and second by Mr. Meadows. All in favor? We are now in public hearing. We have no one signed up for public hearing, so I need a motion to go out of our public hearing back into our regular meeting. Ms. Harris, and second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? We're back in our regular meeting. All right, anything else?
That's all. Thank you, sir.
Move approval.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Meadows for approval on that, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? It passes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. All right, second public hearing, continuation of a public hearing to amend section 3.26, section 6.1 and chapter 7 of the zoning ordinance to permit ADUs in the city and to establish policies to regulate them. Case number TA 247. Mr. Lowe.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So like you stated, this is a continuation of the public hearing from October 16th. So if this text amendment is approved, it will permit ADUs or accessory dwelling units in the city. We worked the application from the feedback that we received from the Planning Commission and City Council in October. We worked the application, like I was saying, and we took it to the Planning Commission, and they voted earlier this month 8-0 to recommend approval as written. So it would update 3 sections of the zone ordinance, chapter 3 to provide a definition for ADUs, chapter 6 to add the use to the table of permitted uses, and then chapter 7 to develop regulations for the use. And I'll cover 4 of them that were added since the October meeting. So the first one is just we made it clearer which structures cannot be used as ADUs. So it's mobile homes, manufactured homes, park model homes, RVs, and shipping containers. The second is new ADUs would have to be of like material to this principal structure. The third is attached ADUs can work off the same electrical meter, but detached would have to have their own electrical meter. And lastly, how we have it proposed at the current moment, ADUs can only be occupied by either a family member or a caregiver of someone that's staying in the principal dwelling. Again, Planning Commission reviewed this early in the month, voted 8-0 to recommend approval as written. Staff is looking for approval as written, or approval with the 2 modifications that's in your packet that addresses parking and the rental of ADUs, and I can answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Mr. Meadows?
I apologize for not being here at the last meeting when this was discussed. I would have brought this up publicly before then. There's a couple things in here that I just want to, the types, that's fine. I'm good with that. The design restrictions, I think those are all solid. However, when you're making public policy, one of the challenges that you have is making sure that's enforceable. So adding this family element in here is going to be extremely difficult to enforce. So I'm not a big fan of putting things in that make it very hard on staff to prove and to enforce. And I think we have some fairly loose definitions of family and numbers of people that can be in a structure. So I have some challenges around the family portion of this that make me uncomfortable from a public policy standpoint. I also have the parking restriction. I thought long and hard about this, and I have a 5-bedroom house, and I have a 2-car garage with a small driveway, and there were no additional restrictions put on me. I could have 5 drivers. I would have to park, in the street for that to be accommodated, and there's no place else for me to put there anything else. I also have a 9-foot, crawl space that could easily be built into an ADU, and regardless of who was going to use it, there would be no place for me to add parking in a subdivision. So the flip side of that is if I had a 2-bedroom house, I still have probably a longer driveway on a bigger lot in a lot of our subdivisions that we have if I added a unit. So I'm not quite understanding how one would also enforce the parking restrictions on a existing single family. And I took issue with the arguments that were made in that we're trying to keep with single family character. If you want to keep a single family character, you don't pass this at all, because it will no longer be single family. It'll now be multifamily as soon as you start adding all the elements in that allow you to have a multifamily unit. If I've got 600-700 square feet inside of a house with a kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom, I have more than one unit already. So that single character, family character, makes it hard for me to kind of get behind that. That's kind of having it both ways, and that doesn't really work for me. And then the rental issue, I don't know how in the world you would keep this. We already allow Airbnbs, and there's been lawsuits throughout that cause challenges with this that I think we would be asking for trouble if we were to put that rental restriction in. So I can only speak for me. I'm not for the first version. I'm much better with the second version. So that's my piece.
Any other comments? Ms. Anders, do you want to talk about what Mr. Meadows just mentioned?
Sure. So, thank you, Mayor and Council. In looking at this with Mr. Lowe, and so there were some alternatives provided under Section A4. There was an alternative provided in your packet on parking that was listed on page 3 of the action agenda item, and an alternative listed for A7 regarding the occupancy. So I do agree legally that the city could not disallow the rental of ADUs completely under some, appeals cases that have come out, especially City of Wilmington versus Hill that came out in 2008. So, that now we have learned that that cities are allowed to regulate in some manner short-term rentals, and so I believe that until the current statutes are changed, which could be in our future. I understand that this is a hot topic in Raleigh. ADUs are a hot topic in Raleigh right now. As you know, cities are allowed to exercise the authority given to them under state law, and that state law is subject to change, and ADUs are a hot topic. And that's correct, Mr. Meadows. I'd say that in terms of the option provided under A2, that could be a viable option under our current law. However, if the law around ADUs changes in Raleigh, then we would have to revisit that.
Mr. Meadows?
So the other concern I have is we currently have an Airbnb ordinance on the books, and this seems to run afoul of that particular ordinance, because you are now putting in place for one type of unit a restriction that you are not putting in place for another type of unit. So I think that opens us up to legal challenges as well. You know, I can rent a room in my house overnight, but I can't rent a contained unit to somebody for less than 7 days. I think that's a problem. So I'm in favor of the ADUs. I like the idea. I like the concept. I think we're getting a lot of public demand surrounding them. But when we create public policy, I really just don't want to set us up to, one, spend a lot of money, and B, I don't want to be the test case. You know, and we know that people are looking for those around the country for various reasons on various public policies. So I'd be much more comfortable if we're going to embrace the idea, having less restriction around it, and as case law presents itself, if we are having issues in case law, then allows us to add more restrictions. We've done this on multiples. I mean, golf carts come to mind. We tried it. We had concerns. We let it run for a while. We found out that we weren't having those kinds of issues. We allowed a little different approach to that over time. So if we wanted to put a timeline on City Manager Blanton's, you know, hey, 2 years from now, can we please have, you know, a report on where are we? You know, have we had issues? How many have come about? How many questions have we had? And if we haven't done this quite right, then we could revisit it and tweak it, is my thinking, instead of just saying no.
Any other comments? Mr. Lowe, anything else from you?
That's all I have.
Okay. We need to go into our public hearing. I need a motion to go into a public hearing. Mr. Craig, second by Mr. Huff. All in favor? Motion passes. We are now in our public hearing. We have no one signed up for a public hearing, so I need a motion to come out of public hearing. Mr. Huff, and a second by Ms. Harris. All in favor? We're back in our regular meeting. So would council like to take action on this?
I'm not sure how to make the motion, but I want to make a motion that does not restrict family members, does not restrict the parking, and does not restrict the rental use on the ADUs.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. What's your name again?
Meadows.
Mr. Meadows, and I have a second by Mr. Craig. All in favor? We have a 4-1. Mr. Reeves votes against that, so the motion passes. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Okay, number 3 on public hearing to amend Chapter 5, Schedule of District Regulations of the zoning ordinance to add new Section 5.0, which would house a table that will provide an overview of the required dimensional standards for the city's various zoning districts, case TA 248. Ms. Priscilla Park.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This proposed text amendment would create a new section within Chapter 5 of the zoning ordinance to add a table that would provide an overview of the dimensional requirements in the various zoning districts in the city. The Planning Commission voted to provide a favorable recommendation to City Council concerning the proposed text amendment during their November 4th meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? None? Okay, we need to go into I need a motion to go into our public hearing by Mr. Meadows, second by Ms. Reed. Ms. Harris. All in favor?
That's the hardest part of the job.
Yeah.
I know.
Motion passes, so we are now in our public hearing. We have no one signed up for our public hearing. I need a motion to go out of our public hearing. Mr. Huff, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? Motion passes. We're back in our regular meeting. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
Move approval.
Yes.
Second.
All right, move approval by Mr. Meadows, second by Mr. Huff. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, public hearing number 4, to amend section 9.9A, signs permitted by specific zone of the zoning ordinance to add a table which will provide an overview of the permitted signage allowed in each of the city's zoning districts. Case number TA 249. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff has submitted a proposed text amendment to add a table to Section 9.9A of the zoning ordinance, which will provide an overview of the permitted signs and regulations that pertain to each zoning district in the city. This text amendment will allow for enhanced readability and greater clarity in this section of the ordinance. Planning Commission made a unanimous favorable recommendation during their meeting on November 4th, and staff is here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Livingston? All right, hearing none, I'll need a motion to go into a public hearing. Mr. Meadows, second by Ms. Harris. All in favor? We're now in our public hearing. We have no one signed up for our public hearing, so I need a motion to go out of our public hearing back into our regular meeting. Mr. Huff, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? We're back in our regular meeting.
Make a motion for approval.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Huff for approval, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Livingston.
Thank you.
All right, number 6 on our public hearing, to consider proposed text amendment. I'm sorry, did I mess up? Oh, I got, there's 2 for Brandon. Public hearing to amend section 5.6B, 2, 6, and 8, R8 MF multifamily residential district of the zoning ordinance to provide a lot width for townhomes while making required standards for both single-family homes and townhomes clear. Case number TA 2410. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has submitted a proposed text amendment to provide a minimum lot width for townhomes while making the required standards clearer for single-family homes and townhomes, which are both permitted uses in this district. Current standards for both townhomes and single-family homes overlap, and this amendment should correct this. Planning Commission made a unanimous favorable recommendation during their meeting on November 4th, and staff is here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Livingston from council? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to go in our public hearing. Mr. Huff and second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? We're now in our public hearing. We have no one signed up. I need a motion to go out of our public hearing back into our regular meeting. Mr. Craig, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? We're back in our regular meeting. Would council like to take action on this?
Make a motion for approval.
Okay, approved, motion by Mr. Huff, second by Ms. Harris. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Livingston.
I don't think she raised her hand.
It is.
That's all.
All right, public hearing number 6. To consider a proposed text amendment to Chapter 6.5 Retail Trade Uses, as well as Chapter 3.26 Definitions in the zoning ordinance to allow for the retail sale of prepared foods in the office and institutional zoning district, O&I, as submitted by Kristen Robinson. Mr. Greg Beal.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This one should be pretty quick. This is a clarification. The applicant for this, Kristen Robinson, had set up shop at 247 West Catawba, which does not allow any retail trade sales as an O&I district. Simple text amendment defines retail sale of prepared food as food that has been prepared off-site, including frozen and/or heated foods, available for retail sale to the public at another place of business. That would allow this clearly incidental use a pathway forward. She intends to use this place as office space while still preparing food at the former Christie's location in the county's jurisdiction. The Planning Commission had a special meeting before this and recommend a favorable approval to the City Council. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Yes, sir.
So I'd be able to do this in any of these zoning districts that are listed here?
Just the O&I.
What is?
Office and institutional, and that's where she's going. So just the O&I district, but it's already in the B1, the B2, the B3. So, but this is specifically for the O&I district. Which
So it'd be consistent with the table of other uses with similar uses?
Yes.
And what was staff's recommendation?
We recommend approval. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we're going to go into a public hearing. I need a motion to do that. Mr. Craig, second by Mr. Huff. All in favor? We are now in our public hearing. We have no one signed up for our public hearing, so I need a motion to come out of public hearing back into our regular meeting. Ms. Harris, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? We're back in our regular meeting. Would you like to take action on this?
That we approve it.
All right.
You got three.
Okay, so we've got, Mr. Huff made a motion to approve this, and second by Mr. Meadows. I don't know why I keep losing his name. All in favor?
Out of sight, out of mind.
All right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Very Freudian.
The motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. All right.
Woo.
Public comment. We have no one signed up for public comment. Thank goodness. So we're going to move on past that. Now we're going to be into our old business update on the Duke River Bend Access Day Use Area. Mr. Mark Jusko.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is a follow-up to the October 28th meeting where we discussed this issue. City staff met with Duke on Wednesday, October 30th, to ask for more clarification on topics such as their fee structure and also the cost share analysis or possibility of a partnership. I've included some information from Duke on what they consider reasonable and customary as far as fees go. Last time we talked about it at $7 per car. They came back with an average in this area for what we have been offering at about $10 per car. So I just wanted to present that information to you and see if there's any questions.
Any questions from council? Mr. Meadows?
The analysis we had, I think, had $7.
Yes.
Did we plug that in to see what that did to the gap on the operating each year?
Yes, it raised the revenue about $30,000 from $7 to
So
$10.
we're still $120,000 off, is that what I recall? I don't have the table in front of me.
Yeah, we went from 70 to $106,000. Yes, $74,000 to $106,000 in revenue.
And the cost estimate was, sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
At the year of N3, it was $174,603, so it would be $30,000 less that. So it still would be running at a deficit of approximately $144,000. Councilman.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves?
Look, in your opinion, based on what we've dealt with what's up there now, would there be a lot of Mount Holly citizen use at that park, in your opinion, and what you're seeing, and the numbers that are up there now versus if we do this?
Well, Duke is going to do this.
Right. Yeah.
Regardless of whether we manage it or not. I would say that, of course, it'll be open to Mount Holly citizens, but at some of our other locations on the lake, probably a majority of the citizens or majority of the people that visit it are from outside the city on a weekend during the summer.
Yes, sir.
So,
Mr. Meadows?
I don't know if it's appropriate to call on Chief Reagan. I don't think he knew this was coming, but I'm curious what our public safety folks, both police and fire, what their experience is up there currently and what their thoughts are on whether it would be better or not if we were in control or not in control. So I think we're going to be and have been busy up there already, and there may be some advantages to being in control of it, but I don't know if that's appropriate, city manager, to call on him out of the blue when he didn't know he was going to get called on. But I'd like to know their opinion, if it's not now, at another time.
Chief Reagan, would you like to speak to that? Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Huff?
I just want to comment, when it comes to public safety, we're going to be paying for that regardless. I mean, they're going to be there, they're going to be responding to calls, no different than they're doing now. The only change may be when we're controlling it, and I would have to let the chief speak to this, but you're going to have a safer environment because it's going to be more controlled, and you're going to have more development and people using the property. That will make it safer and certainly cleaner. The biggest issue, and I know a lot of you have seen this, is the amount of garbage that gets picked up at there, and people just go everywhere and just dump it and leave, all kinds of things. So this should help. No matter what, it's going to improve that, okay, whether we run it or not. But when you use public safety, it's our public safety. It's our personnel that are going to be there.
Yeah, I agree. Regardless if we take the park over or not, Mount Holly's going to take care of it. There's fire, there's police. Mount Holly's going to be the first ones called. The big gap there financially is is my issue. I think that the numbers reflect what, June through August?
Yeah, if we,
Yeah,
yeah, Memorial Day to
through
Labor Day would be the
And,
day.
you know, we've got, of course, you know, you're probably going to have 6 months of a lot of activity, but then you're going to have months of not much of anything. So, and of course, that's based on 106 parking places filled every single day through those months. So that's kind of questionable. Mr. Meadows?
So when we look at those costs, this is a lot like when we were looking at the Greenway. The initial capital costs was not considered when we were talking about the operating costs. And until you bring that into play, for us to replicate this asset is next to impossible. We don't have access to lakefront property, nor do we have the kind of, what is the capital investment again? Do we know that off the top of our head? Sorry, I didn't have this information in front of me, but it's a multi-million-dollar investment, I know, for sure, on property that we could never acquire. So when one brings up Mount Holly and looks at our Parks and Rec portfolio, I suspect that, you know, I wish we had the position that we were approved with the Parks and Rec director in place to get their opinion on it, but I think that this would be a key element to a parks program as well. So I think it'd be remiss to only look at, oh, this big gap of spending on an expense without thinking about, we just had developers tell us that, you know, carrying the land acquisition, the capital infrastructure, you know, we would be able to forego that and have use of this in the long term. You know, even if you had we'll call it $200,000 a year, you know, 10 years from now, we wouldn't even be close to what the capital improvement is here. So when you look at opportunity cost, I think that if you don't take the capital investment that we would have control over into account, that you're missing the full picture.
And one of the things that Mr. Huff, you mentioned at our last meeting was, you know, working with the county, you know, just to see how that would, you know, the county and the city taking it over and see how that worked, even if they did the maintenance on it and we ran the place. I'm not sure that would be something we'd have to sit down and talk about as far as this, but it is a great opportunity. I'm glad it's going to come to Mount Holly, but we've just got to figure this out, and we've got to have more talks with Duke Energy, and there's some things in there that I think that they should pay for and we shouldn't. You know, as far as building the park, I mean, there's no reason for us, if we're going to take it over, they should build it out. You know, it should be where it needs to be. So this could be their premier park. This is their opportunity to have a premier park here in Mount Holly. Yes, sir.
I'm going
Mr.
to go back
Reeves.
to some of the previous conversations. Mark, do you know, our neighbor did not take on their park. Do you know a reason why that was?
You're talking about
Belmont.
South Point?
Yeah,
Belmont?
down South Point.
I am not aware of the reason why, no.
Okay. Because I know we had the conversation that they did not take it on, that went to the county. I was just wondering if there was was it cost concern running it, or was there something else that, out there? I mean.
I'm not aware of the reason.
Yes, sir.
Can we direct staff to go and talk to the county and see if their partnership is even a possibility?
I think that would be good. I know that there's got to be a reason. I think there were only 6 municipalities in their whole 2 states that actually, you know, took care of the parks, that ran the parks, out of North and South Carolina. Is that right, Mr.?
That's right, Mr. Mayor, and I was going to say as well, I've had some informal conversations with our friend at the county. So far, I have not been able to find an appetite, but we will certainly continue to speak with them to see if there's any possibility of a partnership between Mount Holly and Gaston County. I have heard that there are difficulties associated with their lease of the Belmont property. I know there's been some issues surrounding the fees and implementing those that I have heard of, but we will certainly keep those conversations going to see if that is a viable possibility.
Mr. Meadows.
I just want to make one last comment. To date, for me, most of my decisions are made based on math, and currently I have not received enough information for me to make a call. I mean, it seems attractive in some ways, but I don't know enough about some of the numbers. And, you know, there's even some of our own numbers staff-wise that I'm not certain about. But, you know, until we have a full picture, it's really hard to ask the right questions. So I'm cautiously optimistic that it could work, but I'm not convinced so far that it does. Just for the record, I'm not 100% for it. I'm not necessarily against it either, but I just don't think we know enough yet to really get into this kind of commitment for, what is it, like 50-something years?
50 years.
Yeah. So it's a long commitment.
So that's what a lease would be.
Yes.
We would never own the
50
property.
years, right. Any other comments? I think it's something that we just need to have more conversation with. Yes, Mr. Craig?
I don't know if we have the answer to this, but as far as like the, let's just say $10 a car per parking spot, would that just be like if you go to Charlotte and you park and you just go to a kiosk and pay? And if so, like, what would it be with towing? Because I know, as a municipality, City of Mount Holly doesn't like to tow other people's cars, you know, so how does that part of it work? Because I feel like that could be a big issue if someone doesn't pay.
Sure. Well, I think the way it would work, there would be a guard gate or whatever, and they would have to pay before they went through the gate. But, you know, that's just more of the talks that we need to sit down and more information we need to gain so we can make a better informed decision on what we're going to do.
And also with those parking spots, I also envision there is someone, big trucks pulling something that they might not even go into, like a boat into the water. So is that taking up a parking spot as well, an extra one? So it might not be 106 parking spots.
Well, and I think that they said that, Duke said that there would be a fence in between the boat landing and the park.
Yeah, there'll be two entrances, one to the boat landing and
Right.
one, this
So-
is just the day use area.
Gotcha, okay.
Right.
Yes.
So it'd be totally separate on the boat landing as far as hauling a boat and a trailer in.
Gotcha.
Mr. Huff?
Just for clarification too, you can't charge them to fish. That's
Right.
wildlife. You can only charge people in the day use area. So I didn't know if that might be confusing to others. I mean, that was pretty clear when we met with wildlife.
Okay.
Mr. Reeves?
Am I also clear in that wildlife is gonna control the boat landing and that'll have to be no part of this? Isn't that part of the proposal? Where we'll only have control of the park and the boat landing is still gonna be controlled by wildlife? I think I've understood that to be like that.
Yeah, we would have a separate, you know, we would just do the 68 acres.
Right, okay.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Jesco.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go to new business now. Number one, this is a church property, 101 Beatty Road, Miss Anders.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So working together with Mr. Blanton, your city manager, and with Sam Klein, your broker, so we have pulled together a proposed agreement for purchase and sale of land for the establishment of a new fire station. This would be 1.3981 acres that's on Beatty Road, and it's a portion of parcel ID 184344. The proposed purchase price is $433,000, and the closing would be on or before 60 days from when the contract was signed by both parties, with a 14-day due diligence period. And in your packet, there was also an exhibit that is a survey of the site. This is the site of the Catawba Heights Wesleyan Church, also known as Crossroads Church. And this is an open portion of that site. The exhibit shows the Lot 2 is the portion under consideration for purchase. And also in your packet was an Exhibit B, which was a few provisions that amend the standard boilerplate offer to purchase and contract. And what I passed out at your spots is just an amendment to that section, which the church's attorney had proposed some changes to that to make it a little bit different from how it went out in your agenda packet. So that was passed out at your seat when you sat down. She sent that to me today. So what this amendment shows is that the obligation to close would be conditioned upon subdividing this Lot 2 from the remainder of the site, which would have to happen, if at all, before the closing date of 60 days after the second party has signed. And then there's a paragraph 3 that says this is something that their attorney added, that there is some stormwater drainage related improvements, including a flume and some riprap on the northeast corner of this proposed property and partially located on the remaining portion of the site. And so at closing, the parties would execute a mutual easement in a form acceptable to the seller for both parties to continue to use that existing drainage-related improvements as it's currently installed. So that is the proposed agreement before you. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Sanders? Mr.
I
Meadows?
just had one. You're talking about a subdivision, sounded like a condition precedent. Can that happen in 60 days?
We believe that it can.
Okay.
Anything else?
Move approval?
Okay. I have a motion for approval, Mr. Meadows, second by Ms. Harris. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Sanders.
Thank you.
All right, number 2, under new business, we have our manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have several things for the council and the public's consideration this evening. First and foremost, I want to thank our council and every member of the community that has been participating in our Core Values video series. We have had a wonderful time showcasing the great things that are happening here in Mount Holly. We have released 2 of those videos, with the 3rd set to release in December. So thank you, Mayor, Council, for participating in that video series, and certainly our local business owners and some of our local residents that helped us out as we have worked towards showcasing all of the wonderful things that are happening here in Mount Holly. Also, we will be closed for Thanksgiving. Administrative offices will be closed November 28th and 29th. There will be no delay in residential garbage pickup, but certainly want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, hoping that everyone stays safe and gets to enjoy time with their friends and loved ones. There's a lot of holiday events that will be coming up before our next meeting, before our regular meeting on December 9th. We have Mount Holly Community Choir performing on Sunday, December 1st at Grace Baptist Church. We also have our Miracle on Main tree lighting ceremony on Friday, December the 6th, and then we will have Enchantment in the Garden on Saturday, December 7th. So hopefully everyone can come out and join us as we kick off the holiday season. Just 2 things I did want to make note that tonight on consent we did approve the Ransom Hunter Park project to J.D. Goodrum. We are very much looking forward to seeing this park project come into fruition. We are continuing to work with our friends in Raleigh to secure our Part F grant, which will cover a portion of those proceeds. So we are glad to work with J.D. Goodrum again. If you guys will recall, he helped us with the Memorial Plaza here at the Municipal Complex. And as we just discussed, we are moving full speed ahead with the construction of the new fire department, with the acquisition of that property, working with Crossroads Church to be able to see that project come into reality. We had land acquisition budgeted in this year's capital improvement fund, and we will move forward with hopefully pursuing grant opportunities with the General Assembly and long session next year as we work towards getting a new Catawba Heights fire station. That is all that I have tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Blanton. We're now going to need to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3 and 5. I need a motion to go into closed session. Ms. Harris and Mr. Huff, all in favor? We're now